So this little stripy fella is a very popular little cichlid called a frontosa from Lake Tanganyika in Africa. They like a very, very high pH and quite hard water. A lot of people find when they first put them into their aquarium, they're very shy. So they can be quite skittish and can be quite shy. If you don't have many fish in your aquarium, this is a major problem. If you have more fish in the aquarium's quite busy with lots of fish swimming around, this doesn't seem to be as much of a problem. But if you find that when you first introduce them, they do want to hide, that's pretty normal. After a couple of weeks they tend to come out a little bit more, but in general they are a lot more shy than most species of cichlid. And a lot of people complain that they can't get them feeding at the start. And one thing that I've done repeatedly, which has been relatively successful, is to feed them when the lights are out. So I will feed my normal fish, and then I'll turn the lights out, and a few hours after the lights are out I'll come and feed the frontosas, and then I'll find that they do tend to eat more. So feeding the frontosas at night is relatively efficient, and it's relatively natural, because in the wild frontosas grow very large to the vicinity of about a foot, and they're a very, very lazy fish, and the lazier they are and the more dominant they are, they grow a big hump on the top of their head, which is basically a fat reserve. So the more food they can eat and the lazier they can be, the bigger the fat reserve becomes, and the females are attracted to that big fat reserve on the head. So the bigger and fatter their head, the more chicks they get. So they try not to exert too much energy feeding or anything. They don't try to exert much energy with anything, especially as they get older. So they're not the world's most active fish, as you can imagine. And then what they'll do in the wild is they are predatory fish, so they're not aggressive by any means, but they will try and eat little fish that fit in their mouth. So what will happen in the wild is there's Cyphotilapia species and some fish that live in the water column above the frontosas that live on the seabed. Then when these Cyphotilapia species that have three-dimensional territories above the frontosas, when they go to sleep, then the fish come down and sleep on the seabed amongst the frontosas. So what the frontosas do is they do not eat these fish during the daytime, so these fish are not alarmed by the frontosas and not scared of them. But then at night time, when the other fish are asleep, the smaller Cyphotilapia species, they will snap them off and eat them. So they basically try to be friendly to them in the daytime so they're not alarmed by them, and then they will actually feed on them in a stealth mode at night time. So they're not really a fish that's going to wrestle with another fish and try and eat a fish nearly the size of itself, but they will try and bunk off little ones that easily fit in his mouth. Very interesting, very beautiful, very prestige little fish.